What's going on, everybody? Jeff Holiday here, and today we are going to be doing a bit of a catch-up. You see, everything that could possibly hold me back from producing videos has absolutely happened, but I'm here, I'm back, baby, and we're going to be tackling some of the most important things that we need to be talking about on this channel. You see, I have taken upon myself, by building the brand that I have, a responsibility, if you will, to cover certain public health crises, especially when it comes to things like vaccines. And in an age of a pandemic, a global pandemic with COVID-19, well, I have to. It is my responsibility. So because of that, we've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to take at least 2 videos to do it. But I'm being smart this time, and I'm producing both at the same time, so one will come out right after the other. And we'll just chop it up for easily digestible little segments. I say little, but this is probably going to take quite a while to do. So without further ado, let's play catch up with the coronavirus. Now, there's nothing new about anti-vaxxers. They've been around for a very long time. They've been around for a lot longer than most people would think. However, they used to be relegated simply to the dustbin of freak fringe terribleness over here, and not really pervasive in larger society. That, however, has changed. As I showed with my expose into CalJam. By the way, if you want to go and see a really interesting video, you should go check out my video where I went undercover at CalJam. It was wild. I would say probably the majority of chiropractors somewhat ascribe to wingnut pseudoscience and in some ways extremely dangerous ideas. Dangerous ideas. I know it's a loaded term, but well, people are dying, so maybe it's time to actually start using these terms. But it's gotten worse since then. Oh yes, it's gotten so much worse. You see, it's also now become an unholy alliance of chiropractors, anti-vaxxers, and the Patriot Movement. For instance, at a quote-unquote freedom rally just a few months ago, you had Lee Dundas, who was a lawyer that attended the January 6th insurrection in Washington, D.C.
Where was I? Hitler used a false flag event, guys. The Reichstag fire. We have a virus that is 99.9% survivable, and we have turned our entire planet upside down over it. You can do the math. Hitler then went on to change 400 laws in 6 years. Guess what Newsom's done? Newsom has changed 400 laws in 6 months. Okay? Then Hitler went and closed. This is a direct quote off of Google. You can Google it when you get home. The first thing Hitler did to consolidate his reign of terror and power is he, quote, closed all non-essential businesses. And guess what Newsom also did? Then Hitler targeted the children, closing Jewish schools. Well, hell, Newsom's got him beat. He's just closing all the damn schools.
Sharing the same stage with her was noted anti-vaxxers like Judy Mikovits, as well as several rising stars in the anti-vax chiropractic world. And of course, who else was there at that convention? None other than Dell Bigtree himself. And what did Dell have to say?
Just 5 years ago, really, if you wanted to talk about concerns with vaccination, then it was this quiet little whisper amongst 3 to 5% of people. Mommy groups telling you we're crazy to ever question it. And now, is there a bigger headline in the world? I don't think there is.
Awesome. Now, keep in mind, I've been trying very, very hard for years now to be as apolitical as possible as I can be on this channel. But with the rising tide of anti-vax sentiment now being espoused on one very specific political side, it is going to sound like I'm being political. I am not. That is not what I'm here to do. That is not what these videos are here to do. I want to make that clear. However, you're going to notice that there are going to be certain similarities in the people that we're talking about and the platforms that they're on. I didn't do that. Science doesn't care what political party you are part of. It doesn't care what kind of content creators or intellectuals you think are interesting or thought-provoking or fighting the culture war. Science doesn't care about that. Science is just a completely neutral aspect to all of this, a neutral way of looking at evidence and understanding better the truth of our world. So if it turns out feeling a bit political, Don't blame me. Starting off, we have this clip from Fox and Friends, in which they are angry because Dr. Anthony Fauci is trying to encourage people to stop listening to political propaganda and simply get the shot.
This is not complicated. We're not asking anybody to make any political statement one way or another. We're saying try and save your life and that of your family and that of the community. Here we have a vaccine that's highly effective. It's easy to get, it's free, and it's readily available. So, you've got to ask, what is the problem? Get over it. Get over this political statement. Just get over it and try and save the lives of yourself and your family.
Presumptuous to think that you're not getting the vaccine if it is indeed the case because of politics. Maybe you had the virus already. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have the antibodies. Maybe the fact that it's emergency use doesn't make you feel comfortable. Why not give people credit rather than try to berate them into doing something and claiming it's playing politics?
Well, and does your doctor talk to you that way? He's clearly
Get
political.
over it.
Get over it. You have to take this shot. No.
It is rather telling that one of their main problems with Anthony Fauci is that he's just not quite nice enough when he's trying to describe behavior that will save the lives of people and their families. It's quite a, if you ask me, Karen argument, but still, this is all about whether or not this should be politicized. And then they say this.
What if you have a 15-year-old and you watch Fox and Friends when Brian interviewed the dad whose son, it hurts every time his heart beats, he tells his dad, after he got the shot. He can't play soccer anymore, and no telling how long he'll deal with these, with these issues.
And this really gets to the core of the Fox News problem when it comes to covering things like vaccination. They try and say that, well, they're just trying to be respectful of people's feelings and not actually trying to push an agenda. However, we're also going to feature the worst case scenario broadcast on one of the most popular news channels in the entire country, showing the potential dangers that could actually happen. And then there's this.
They know where to get the vaccine. It's like every drugstore or grocery store across the country.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Or we have City MD. We have all these pop-up, doctors, these small little, on every corner. I mean, you know where to get a vaccine. If you don't, you can easily ask your friend who got a vaccine, where do I go?
Plus, they're going to be knocking on your door soon. So go home, check your Ring doorbell. Anthony Fauci might be there in a smock. It'll be fantastic. And a cotton ball.
Wow. Good joke, bro. And totally not intended to stoke the fears of paranoia of people who are a bit nervous about the shot. Yeah, well done. Yeah, smooth. Let's look a little bit closer at this. Maybe we can understand why some people might be so hesitant to take the vaccine. This comes from the New York Times on July 11th of this year. White House officials said on Thursday that virtually all new coronavirus hospitalizations and deaths nationwide involved unvaccinated people. The 5 states with the worst outbreaks as of Wednesday had below average vaccination rates. 4 of them voted for Donald J. Trump in the 2020 election. Vaccine resistance was greater among Republicans than Democrats, according to an April study by the Public Religion Research Institute. Among Republicans who watch Fox News, 45% said they were hesitant or unwilling to get a COVID-19 shot, compared with 68% of viewers who watch the niche right-wing channels Newsmax or One America News Network, both of which, it is worth mentioning, are extremely pro-Trump outlets.
One thing I've always thought, and maybe you can guide me on this because obviously I'm not a doctor, but when I've always thought about vaccines, and I always think about just nature and the way everything works. And I feel like a vaccination in a weird way is just generally kind of going against nature. Like, I mean, if there is some disease out there, maybe there's just an ebb and flow to life where something's supposed to wipe out a certain amount of people, and that's just kind of the way evolution goes. Vaccines kind of stand in the way of that.
On his Wednesday program, Mr. Carlson, which is Tucker Carlson, went after colleges that have required students to be vaccinated before their return to campus. They shouldn't get the shot, said Mr. Carlson, who has not disclosed whether he has been vaccinated against COVID-19. It's not good for them. There's a risk involved, much higher than of COVID, but colleges are forcing them anyway. His guest for the segment, Charlie Kirk, and we'll get to Charlie Kirk a little bit more in just a little bit, a founder of the conservative group Turning Point USA, compared the campus precautions to almost this apartheid-style open-air hostage situation like, oh, you can have your freedom back if you get the jab. And as bad as all of that is, we also have to take a look at some of the words that Tucker Carlson himself has said over the air, including this, probably the most egregious example from May 5th.
Every flu season, for example, we give influenza shots to more than 160 million Americans. Every year, a relatively small number of people seem to die after getting those shots. To be precise, in 2019, that number was 203 people. The year before that, 2018, it was 119 people. In 2017, it was a total of just 85 people who died after getting the flu shot. Now, every death is tragic, obviously, but at big picture, we do not consider those numbers to be disqualifying. We keep giving flu shots, and very few people complain about it. So the question is, how do those numbers compare to the apparent death rate from the coronavirus vaccines now being distributed across the country? That's worth knowing. So we checked today, and here's the answer. And these numbers come from the same set of government numbers that we just read to you from. Here they are. Between late December of 2020 and last month, a total of 3,362 people apparently died after getting the COVID vaccine in the United States. 3,362. That's an average of roughly 30 people every day.
Now, long-running viewers of my channel who have been watching me counter a lot of the anti-vax propaganda might be able to pick out exactly what he's talking about, but just so we understand exactly where these numbers he's citing are coming from, let's watch just a little bit more. I know this clip is long, but please, stick with me.
The actual number is almost certainly higher than that, perhaps vastly higher than that. The data we just cited come from the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS.
Ah, yes, the great looming specter of VAERS. VAERS, the same unregulated database when anybody can post any type of adverse vaccine reaction, and of course thus is flooded with a bunch of anti-vaxxer claims, is the same place that I once found somebody claiming that their grandpa, who died from heart failure, died because of a vaccine that they received 4 decades prior. VAERS is a CDC-run website. However, the CDC themselves have then, and routinely do, go through all of the claims made in there to see if they have any validity. And yet, to this date, those numbers have never been ratified, not by the very people who run the database that Tucker Carlson is trying to cite as evidence that the vaccine can somehow kill. But really the thing that will mostly encapsulate why Tucker Carlson is in fact an anti-vaxxer at this point is going to be what I'm going to show you next, because the rhetoric that he uses should seem very familiar for anybody who has paid attention. Take a look at this.
Now, this might be an acceptable policy. It would never be an ethical policy, but as a practical matter, it might be acceptable to the country if COVID vaccines, we could show conclusively, came with no risk. And if we truly understood the long-term effects of those vaccines. But neither one of those things is true. We know that according to the government reporting system, thousands of people have died after getting the shot. That is true in this country, where it's hotly debated when it's talked about at all, but it's also true in European countries whose record keeping on this question is, if anything, more reliable than ours. Many thousands of other people appear to have been injured after getting the vaccination. VAERS records nearly 900 non-fatal heart attacks in people who just received the shot. 2,700 people reported unexplained chest pains. In all, the vaccine, according to the government reporting system, appears to have contributed to at least 8,000 hospitalizations. Some of the side effects defy easy explanation. Researcher Alex Berenson has noted that coronavirus vaccines now account for almost 1/3 of all tinnitus reports in the VAERS database. Tinnitus, the ringing in your ears.
I feel like I'm going to have to repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Reports on VAERS can come from any source at any time, and anybody can put whatever they want on it. But before we move on, I wanted to read something from this article I found. This comes to us from AL.com. Dr. Brittany Kobia said Monday that all but one of her COVID patients in Alabama did not receive the vaccine. The vaccinated patient, she said, just needed a little oxygen and is expected to fully recover. Some of the others are dying. I'm admitting young, healthy people to the hospital with very serious COVID infections, wrote Kobia, a hospitalist at Grandview Medical Center in Birmingham. in an emotional Facebook post on Sunday. One of the last things they do before they're intubated is beg me for the vaccine. I hold their hand and tell them that I'm sorry, but it's too late. In the United States, COVID is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. According to the head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in Alabama, state officials report 94% of COVID hospital patients and 96% of Alabamians who have died of COVID since April were not fully vaccinated. A few days later, when I call time of death, continued Kobia, that's the doctor in the article, on Facebook, I hug their family members and tell them the best way to honor their loved one is to go get vaccinated and encourage everyone they know to do the same. They cry and they tell me they didn't know. They thought it was a hoax. They thought it was political. They thought because they had a certain blood type or a certain skin color, they wouldn't get as sick. They thought it was just the flu, but they were wrong, and they wish they could go back, but they can't, so they thank me and they go get the vaccine. And I go back to my office, write their death note, and say a small prayer that this loss will save more lives. So at this point, maybe you're asking yourself, how exactly do we fight back against things like this? How do you find a way to counteract the loudest noises in the room? Because this is basically what it is. Old Sourpuss Face here is in fact the most popular political commentator in the United States of America. His show is the most watched political show out of any of them right now. How do you combat against that? I don't know. I only have my platform, which I'm very grateful for, but I am a speck of dust in the wind compared to the amount of weight and leverage that this one person can bring to bear on this issue. We are fighting an unkillable dragon, but it is once again reaffirming one of the reasons why we, all of us, have to be proactive in trying to counter these things in our everyday lives with the people that we love and care about. It's kind of up to us. We have to help our friends and our family members who unfortunately are buying into, well, bullshit. And it is bullshit. Make no mistake. It is absolutely bullshit. There are so many damn times I can see claims being made on a major news outlet that with a simple Google search, I can actually understand how misleading and wrong it is. But it's not just there. It's infected every part of our lives, including social media. Here's a really good example. This comes from the galaxy brain intellect of Charlie Kirk.
The new VAERS data, according to the CDC website, VAERS is a public portal that you can plug into the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, shows that there is as many as 12,313 deaths after getting the vaccine. We've also gone into detail about how the VAERS and the FDA, according to this study of the Electronic Support for Public Health Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, shows that it really might only reflect 1%. So, if VAERS is off by 99%, that would mean 1.2 million people died after getting the vaccine.
Charlie, I think we would have noticed that. But the social media cancer is, well, it gets worse, of course. Take, for instance, this garbage tweet by an Alex Berenson. The newest Israeli data indicate complete vaccine failure on every level. Remember, Israel only used the Pfizer mRNA shot and followed Pfizer dosing schedule. This data from the Israel MOH Telegram account show nearly all serious cases and deaths are now among the vaccinated. Green bars represent the vaccinated, red unvaccinated. Further, the number of severe cases is rising far faster than overall hospitalizations, ending the myth that vaccines stop severe disease. There is absolutely no reason to think the U.S. won't see the same trend within weeks. Here's another look at data from the Israeli Ministry of Health website. New and overall severe cases and new positive tests. This is not stratified by vaccination status, but practically every vulnerable adult in Israel is vaccinated. And of course, that tweet does not have any citations. It doesn't have anything to back it up. It just has graphs written in a language that most people who are going to be looking at the tweet don't read. However, it would be very unfortunate if there was, an easily findable source that counteracts and disproves everything that was just claiming. It would be very embarrassing for Alex Berenson if that was the case. Oh my. Well, look at that. Only one of 61 Israelis hospitalized with COVID in serious condition is a fully vaccinated individual under the age of 60, Channel 12 News reported Sunday, citing health ministry figures. According to the report, 24 of those in serious condition are unvaccinated, while 37 are fully vaccinated. The lone seriously ill, fully vaccinated person under 60 was in the 50 to 59 age group. No fully vaccinated individuals under age 50 were in serious condition. Meanwhile, among the unvaccinated, 14 people under age 50 were in serious condition, 2 of whom were younger than 40. And that always comes down to the tried and true problem with these types of situations. When you actually have the full context, when you actually understand the whole thing, if you take the time to look into it, very often you find that these people are being incredibly disingenuous. Alex Berenson knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Make no mistake. This is not an accident. This is not an oopsie-doopsie whoopsie-poopsie. No, this was intentionally done. Absolutely. And it really just paints the whole picture. People like this want you to be afraid, because when you're afraid, you're paying attention to what they have to say. They're not empowering you. They're instilling fear in you. And that way they can control you. And then they can get clicks, and they can get money, and they can get likes. I know, because if I was really obsessed with clicks and likes and money from YouTube, I'd be doing political content because that's where all the money is. Not science content. But I digress. It really does basically come down to a very simple fact, and we have to understand this. As more people get vaccinated, it doesn't mean that people aren't going to be getting sick. People still get sick. What you have to do is, as obviously more numbers of people are going to be vaccinated, you have to understand that then the percentage of people who are vaccinated will become a higher percentage just because there's more people. And it does bear worth mentioning, despite what this jackass, who is doing now what he claimed others were doing a year ago, says, when you are vaccinated, if you are older and you still contract COVID and need to go to the hospital, the statistics have all shown that you fare a better chance of having much milder symptoms and an easier recovery. So even if you have a compromised immune system and the vaccine doesn't give you total protection, you're still better off. So now I hope you understand a little bit better what the problem is and what we're really facing and how pervasive this has gotten. We went from a culture of people trying to push back against crazy anti-vaxxers to now having it in our living rooms on a daily basis, all the time, over and over and over. And we have to find ways to counteract against that. We really do. Because this is going to get people, what's that word? It's the opposite of alive. Dead. It's going to get people dead. Very dead. Bad dead. The kind of dead you don't come back from, you know? Just so people understand what I'm trying to say. And the people that are pushing this, I guarantee you, most of them, probably already vaccinated. And the ones that aren't, the ones that have always been the wingnut fringe weirdos that have been pushing this stuff for a while, they're going to start getting major media coverage. Unless they accidentally, yeet themselves off the planet, which is actually what almost happened to Dell Bigtree. Dell Bigtree could have died because he refused transfusion from donors vaccinated against COVID-19. Dell Bigtree almost bled to death from hemorrhoid. Almost bled to death from hemorrhoids, but still refused transfusion from donors vaccinated against COVID-19. Instead, he flew to Cancun to get unvaccinated blood at a quack cancer clinic. This sort of disinformation can kill. In Bigtree's case, it almost did. Anyway, there's a larger, broader context that we now have to understand and we can work off of. So in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the quackery surrounding ways in which to treat COVID-19, specifically with drugs like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, because these are the grifts that will not die, and you will be amazed at how similar these are to some of the old-timey anti-vax tropes. So, stick around for that. Should be out in probably a couple of days. All right, from my family to yours, I hope you are well. I hope they're well. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Mwah!